Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Penn State 365 podcast. My name is Duncan Crowley, beat writer, recruit analyst here at Happy Valley, insider of the Rivals Network, covering everything Penn State athletics. A little bit of a solo podcast here to cover preview Penn State's matchup against Wisconsin for tomorrow's whiteout, as well as quickly go over their recruiting list of notable visitors. So let's go right into it. Just going to talk about who I think, what I think the key matchups here are to watch. Plus, of course, my prediction for the game. I'm going to actually just get my prediction out there right away. So, the odds, by the way, Penn State minus 13, over under 46.5. I'm going to have Penn State winning this game 28 to 17. So, I do have Washington covering here, and I do have the under I do have the total going under. So, what do I think are the key matchups here? Before I get into that, let's just kind of go surface level here of the Washington offense. Led by quarterback Will Rogers, the former Mississippi State quarterback, is now in Seattle. He's having a good season, and we'll get into that. But surface level numbers, 23.6 points per game for this Washington offense. Defense has been very good, only allowed 19 points per game. The offense, it can move the ball in between the 20s. There's no doubt about that. 429 total yards of offense per game this season, top 40 in the country. They're led by their passing attack of 280.7 yards per game. On the ground, they're doing pretty well, 148 yards per game and 4.7 yards per carry. But as I mentioned, Will Rogers having a very good season. 71% completion percentage, up 12% from last year with Mississippi State. Nearly 2,300 yards this season, 13 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Doing a great job of not throwing the ball over a ton. Career high 8.2 yards per attempt and 11.6 yards per completion. On the ground, Jonah Coleman is the one of the better running backs Penn State will have faced this season. 889 yards on the ground this season, 6.3 yards per carry. Most missed tackles in the nation, I believe, with 59. So that'll be something to watch in this game. Also can be a threat out of the backfield with 142 receiving yards. I do apologize if my little one makes any noises in the background. In terms of wide receivers for this Washington offense, there is two that you really have to know. Denzel Boston, 53 receptions, 682 yards, and 9 touchdowns, as well as Giles Jackson, 55 receptions, 597 yards, and 2 scores. Boston this season got off. If I bring up this game log here, sorry, I was looking at Jackson's game log there. If I bring up Boston's game log this season, this is a guy who waited his turn in Washington after not being the key guy. He had 2 really good back-to-back games earlier this season against Washington Rutgers with 125 and 120 yards each. 99 yards last week against USC. Also had 80-yard performance against Michigan. Notably in 2 of their Huskies' blowout losses this year against Iowa and Indiana, he had just 48 and 43 yards. Giles Jackson this season has 1 game of 100-plus yards, that against Washington State. Last week against USC, 44 yards. And 63 against Iowa and 11 against Indiana. This is, I think, a second passing attack that's going to get theirs against Penn State's secondary. But I expect Penn State's secondary, for the most part, to contain Will Rogers, Denzel Boston, and Giles Jackson in this game. There are a couple other names out there. Kileki Latu, their tight end, who also spent time at Cal and Nevada. He has 31 receptions for 306 yards this season. As is tight end Decker DeGraff, 10 receptions, 182 yards. And we already mentioned Jonah Coleman's ability out of the backfield. So, it sounds like this Washington offense is really good, right? Like I said, it's all in between the 20s, because in the red zone, just a 77.4% conversion rate this season. Good enough for 111th in the country. They also struggle on converting on 3rd and 4th down, 36% conversion rate on 3rd down, and 44% conversion rate on 4th down. Both are borderline, just around the 100th ranking nationally. Number 98 3rd down conversion, number 99 4th down conversion rate this season. Obviously, all those numbers play in favor of Penn State, who's been able to get off the field defensively outside of last week's loss to Ohio State. 33.9% conversion rate this season. Or Penn State has succeeded in keeping opponents off the field. Allowing just 33.9% conversion rate, 60% 4th down conversion rate, and opponents are only scoring about a 72% red zone scoring rate this season. Of course, Penn State secondary has been very good this season. allowing just 5.9 yards per. Uh, sorry, looking at the wrong one here. No, I was right. 5.9 yards per pass play this season for Penn State's defense. Uh, and allowing just 175 yards total per game this year. Now, the big key, I think, for Penn State in this game, pass-wise, is going to be the pass rush. This is a Washington pass protection or offensive line that has struggled in pass protection. 101 total pressures allowed in 9 games this season and 18 sacks. So obviously, Will Rogers has been able to get out of a few of those sacks, but 101 pressures not going to be a good combination. Not going to be a great matchup for Washington's offensive line against Penn State's defense, especially on the edges where Washington's 2 tackles have allowed 40 pressures this season. Abdul Carter could have a big game this game, and if denied Dennis Sutton's healthy, he could also have a big game. But also, the interior of Penn State's defensive line could have a big day as well. The center for Washington has struggled in pass protection. Their guards have been solid, but I look for Zane Durant potentially have a big game in the pass rush as well. Penn State, I think, is going to be able to slow down this Washington rushing offense, but it's going to be about maintaining those missed tackles. Penn State's linebackers have struggled at times, especially Tony Rojas in that missed tackles category. If they can stop Coleman at the point of contact, the first point of contact, they're going to be fine in this game. If they allow him to break off big gains after, breaking some tackles, it could be a dicey game for Penn State's defense against this Washington Russian attack. In terms of the Washington defense going up against this Penn State defense, this is a Washington defense that's done a really good job this season for the most part, just 291 yards allowed per game. Let's start with the Russian defense, 150.8 yards per game, 4.43 yards per carry. But in Big Ten play this season, this has been a run defense that has struggled. You look at their numbers, 220 yards allowed to Iowa, 188 yards allowed to Indiana, 184 yards allowed to Rutgers, 174 yards allowed to Michigan, 166 yards allowed to USC. You look at the yards per carry in those, Indiana only averaged 3.6, but the rest, 5.6, 5.7, 5.9, 4.7. This is a Washington front 7 that can be exploited on the ground. I do wonder if Penn State's going to be able to do that, though. Nicholas Singleton has not looked fully healthy, and this is a Penn State rushing offense that has struggled since that Illinois game earlier this season. The last 4 games have been a struggle for this Penn State rushing attack. There's no way around that. So we'll see if Penn State can exploit that rush defense for Washington. But that's where Washington is the most exploitable. The pass defense for Washington, however, just 2 games this season allowed 200 plus passing yards, including last week against USC, which they allowed 293 passing yards. It's been a very good secondary this season overall for Washington, allowing just 53.1% completion percentage, which is 8th best in the country, 5.4 yards per pass, which is 3rd best in the country, and 147.5 passing yards per game, which is 3rd best in the country. I mean, this is an elite secondary for Washington, and I have a big question mark if Penn State's going to be able to move the ball through the air in this game, just because this Penn State wide receiver room has not got it done in Big Ten play, and until proven otherwise, I am going to have my doubts about them being able to do it consistently against Big Ten defenses, especially secondaries that are good as Washington's. I mean, this is going to be a tough matchup for Penn State passing attack. I think Drew is going to be fine in this game, but can the wide receivers get open? And, I mean, honestly, it comes down to a big part of it's going to be Tyler Warren. If Washington can contain Tyler Warren in the passing attack, this is going to potentially be a long day for the Penn State passing offense. And it makes the rushing attack even more important for Penn State in this game. So I do think Penn State's defense has the advantage on the Washington offense, but I think it's arguable that the Washington defense has the advantage on Penn State offense here, because you have a Penn State passing offense that has been good but not great, and then you have a Penn against a Washington secondary that's been great, and then you have a Penn State rushing attack that's been okay since the start of October against a Washington rush defense that is pretty mediocre at best. But the fact that Penn State hasn't been able to have success on the ground consistently in a couple weeks kind of negates, the mediocreness of the Washington run defense. I mean, I think Washington's defense may have the advantage here against Penn State's offense based off, recent weeks. Two key areas here, though, I want to point out. The first one, Washington has been giving up a ton of penalty yards this year. 7 penalties per game this year. I think they've had 6 games of 7+ penalties this year. 62 penalty yards per game, which ranks 105th in the country this season. Washington cannot give a ton of yards away to Penn State in this game. Penn State will take advantage of that, in my opinion. Second one is Penn State. While they've found consistency in their kicking game, Washington's kicking game has not been consistent this year. Just 65% field goal rate for Grady Gross, or conversion rate for Grady Gross. 6 for 7 within 20, 3 for 5 within 40, between 30 and 39 yards. And then from 40 on beyond, he's 4 for 8, including 4 from 6 from 40 to 49. But it's just that inconsistency is beyond, 30 yards. That's 7 for 13 beyond 30 yards, 4 of 8 from beyond 40 yards. He can make his kicks, he absolutely can, but he is inconsistent in doing so. So that'll be something to watch in this one from a special teams aspect as well. Overall, this Washington special teams unit has mostly been, I would say, a bottom of the barrel special teams unit this season. S&P Plus has them ranked 131st nationally. And just kind of going back to it, offense ranked 50th. So, again, pretty solid offense. 24th defense, really solid defense. Penn State, for comparison, in the S&P Plus this season is ranked 16th offensively, 2nd defensively, 75th special teams. So Penn State does have the advantage in each facet through special teams, but I do think what I said is notable, especially the passing attack against the Washington secondary. So overall, that's why I think of the matchups, I do think Penn State's going to win this game. As I said, 28-17. I think 3 keys to the game for Penn State in this one is going to be, one, starting fast offensively, just averaging, I think, 4.3 points per game in the first quarter this season. Honestly, they got off to a fast start last week against Ohio State, 10-0 in the first quarter, and it didn't pan out. But Penn State fans are coming to this one kind of deflated after last week's loss. Not as excited. Got to keep the fans in this one, I think, early on. Give them something to cheer for early. And if you can get that crowd into it, I think you have a chance for a potential snowball effect for Penn State against Washington here. Just continue to build momentum. And if Washington gets, a bad break or two, a turnover early, Penn State could jump out to a big lead. And it could be over before you know it. Secondly, get that rushing attack going. We talked about how weak this Washington run defense has been in Big Ten play. I think Penn State needs to take advantage of that. And then convert it on 3rd down, 4th down, and in the red zone. Penn State last week, 3 trips to the red zone, 3 points. Not going to cut it. Obviously, I don't think it's a sign of things to come. I think you're just going to have games like that where it goes, poorly for you. Unfortunately for Penn State, that's against the game they have to win against Ohio State. I don't see that happening against Washington this week. I think Penn State takes advantage of their opportunities in the red zone, and Penn State has been successful in 3rd down and 4th down conversions all season. They've won those battles pretty consistently, again, outside of last week. Again, when Penn State faces opponents they should beat, they usually do it pretty well. When they face opponents they shouldn't beat, they struggle. This is an opponent against Washington they should beat, and that's a major part of why I expect them to win this week. So yeah, that's really the preview of this game. I mean, I guess quickly, a couple of key players to watch on this Washington defense. Start with linebacker Carson Bruner, really, really good defense player, linebacker, I should say. 6-7 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 interceptions, 5 pass deflections. Isaiah Ward is probably their best pass rusher in terms, again, in the backfield for chaos. The defensive end who made the transfer from Arizona this season has 18 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 3 sacks. Alfonso Tupatala has been solid at linebacker as well. 50 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2.5 sacks. In the secondary, you're looking at guys like Cameron Fabiu Callanan. Um, he's been really good this season. 36 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and then you could also note Thaddeus Dixon as well. He has 1 interception and 8 uh, pass breakups, plus a very distinguished name, Thaddeus Dixon. That's a presidential name right there. Uh, should mention linebacker Kamari House as well. This is a really strong linebacker unit for Washington in this game, which again plays into the Penn State rushing attack against this Washington front seven. How will Washington be able to do against Penn State's rush attack? But how will Penn State's rush attack be able to do, more importantly, after kind of having a slow last couple of weeks? I know they had like 175 yards against Wisconsin, but other than that, it's been really, 3 yards and a pile of dust for Penn State recently. So yeah, I think that's just the really quick breakdown of this game, really quick preview of this game, players to watch on Washington, and just what I think about this key matchups. Ultimately, I think Penn State does win this game. If I had to give a reason, I think they will find enough success on the ground in this game against a weaker Washington run defense. I think Drew is a good enough quarterback to take advantage of some plays that the Washington secondary may give him throughout the game. I don't expect a big game, but it is a pass defense that has at times given up yardage, as we've shown against Washington State and USC. I don't expect a big game, but I expect maybe 225, 240 yards out of the Penn State passing attack. And I think if Penn State get to 150 on the ground, they have an avenue to a win here in this game. I expect Penn State's defense to have success. I think they'll give up yards in between the 20s, but I expect them to be able to get off the field on third downs, and I expect them to really slow down Washington once Washington does get on to Penn State's side of the field in this game. And I think special teams could be a big part in this one as well. Other than that, let's get into the recruiting for this weekend. Before we dive into the recruiting, I do want to give out a shout out to our sponsor, SeatGeek. If you were looking maybe to go to tomorrow's whiteout against Washington, go over to SeatGeek today. Use Penn State Rivals. Get a little bit of a discount on those tickets that you're going to buy. SeatGeek obviously is a great way to purchase tickets, whether it's a Penn State sporting event or maybe you're a Pittsburgh or Philadelphia sporting event. Maybe you're looking to go to a concert or whatever it may be. SeatGeek has it all covered for you over there, including Penn State. Penn State's whiteout tomorrow against the Washington Huskies. Tickets for the game right now as low as $113 before using the code Penn State Rivals. SeatGeek will let you know how good of a deal you are getting on those tickets. They rate them 1 to 10, and let me tell you right now, I'm looking at the remaining tickets for tomorrow's game, and there is a lot of amazing deals left out there for Penn State fans to take advantage of. So go to SeatGeek today, use the code Penn State Rivals, get a discount on your tickets, whether it's tomorrow for the Penn State whiteout, or perhaps you're going to the Maryland game at the end of the season, or perhaps you're waiting for a potential home playoff matchup in the first round of the college football playoffs. Whatever it may be, go over to SeatGeek, buy your tickets today, use Penn State Rivals on your first purchase to get a discount. And hey, you want to perhaps use that multiple times, you could just sign up for another account. Just saying. Just saying. Don't tell them we told you that, but they're right. That being said, be sure to go over to SeatGeek today, take advantage of that discount code, and buy your tickets today. Let's get into the recruiting side of things. Penn State had a big recruiting weekend last week against Ohio State, 150 plus recruits on campus. Another big weekend this weekend. I believe going to be well over 100. I'm just going to go over a couple of the prospects on hand this weekend. Starting with one of the top, not just football prospects in the country, but basketball prospects in the country, offered by both Penn State football and basketball. That'll be 4-star tight end Kendra Harrison, one of Penn State's top tight end prospects in the 2026 recruiting class. number 12 player overall in the Rivals 250 rankings. Number one tied in the country, number 2 player out of the state of North Carolina. Like I said, one of the top Penn State tight end targets in the 2026 recruiting cycle. And Harrison has been showing notable interest in the Nittany Lions as well this season, or in his recruitment. I do think it is a little bit of an uphill battle for Penn State, but their development of tight ends, their usage of tight ends has to stand out to Harrison, and we'll see how his visit goes this weekend. This will be his second visit to Penn State. He also was at last year's whiteout against Iowa, but big visitor in Harrison this weekend. Moving on to in-state prospect here, offensive guard Tom Merrill, top 100 prospect in the Rivals 250, number 2 prospect in the state of Pennsylvania, only behind Penn State commitment Kevin Brown. Penn State would love to have Kevin Brown on the outside and Tyler Merrill next to him on the inside. He's back on campus for the second straight weekend after a strong visit last week. Nittany Lions are making him a priority. He's among their top targets in the class, regardless of position. Notably, Michigan and Notre Dame have also been 2 programs off to great starts with the Cumberland Valley standouts so far this season. But Penn State's gaining some positive momentum in this recruitment for sure. We saw, a similar story with safety prospect Joey O'Brien, who Penn State was trailing Notre Dame for in that recruitment for a while. But Penn State this season has made a big push for O'Brien, and I think is very close to future cast territory for that 4-star safety out of LaSalle, outside of Philadelphia. Moving on, another top 100 prospect here, defensive end, Tyden Davis, who I think could move inside to defensive tackle at the next level. One of Penn State's top defensive line targets this class. I believe this will be his first game day visit to Penn State. I think it's going to be a tough pull out of the Midwest, but Penn State has been able to make these types of pulls throughout the James Franklin era. They've done it, obviously, just this past cycle as well in Jaden Woods. So I'm not going to rule Penn State out on this one. Penn State's development of edge rushers has to be notable in this one, has to stand out to Tyden Davis, but it will be a little bit of a tougher pull for sure. Other notable offers here: Arkansas, Auburn, Iowa, Kentucky, LSU, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas A&M, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. A lot of offers there for Tyden Davis out of St. Louis. Not a place that Penn State historically has a ton of success, but definitely a top target on campus this weekend. Big weekend for tight end targets. Should mention another one of Penn State's top tight end targets on campus this weekend is J.C. Anderson out of Mount Zion in Illinois. Top 120 prospect, number 117 nationally according to Rivals, number 5 tight end. Nittany Lions are, I think, going to emerge as a top contender for Anderson. I expect them to get an official visit down the road solely based on their success at producing tight ends. And I think the relationship that Ty has built with him so far has been very good as well. That being said, this is going to be a recruitment that has your usual suspects in it: Notre Dame, Michigan, Iowa. He's a Midwest prospect, obviously, coming out of Illinois. All those schools have success, developing tight ends, as does Penn State. I see those 4 schools probably being where this one comes down to. Still a long way to go, but a name that is absolutely worth knowing. Making the trip from out west is 4-star defensive end Sean Scott, number 124 prospect in the country, a top 8 weak side defensive end in the country, and a top 20 player out of California. This will be his second visit to Penn State. Also made a visit back in, I believe, March of 2023, so first game day visit. It's hard to say. I don't expect Penn State to necessarily be a big player in this recruitment, but we saw Penn State land Darius Dixon this year very quietly up until, Dixon really made that official visit and committed. So I do think they can become a contender for Scott, but right now, kind of just waiting and seeing how this one develops for Penn State and Scott. If they do get involved heavily, it will be the likes of USC, Oklahoma, Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon, who are also competing for the 4-star talent. At safety, Caden Gebhardt out of Olentangy High School in Ohio, same high school that produced freshman quarterback and 2024 signee Ethan Grunkemeyer. Gebhardt back on campus for the second straight week. Gebhardt really loves Penn State so far in his recruitment. I think one could argue perhaps they're the leader for him. Obviously, Penn State has one safety commit already in Matt Sieg, who committed to the Nittany Lions last week during their prior to their game against Ohio State. Gebhardt is definitely, I think, higher up on the Penn State safety board, but still trying to determine where he is in the pecking order. Penn State, how many safeties will they take in the class? Still kind of yet to be determined. But other notable offers for Gebhardt: Indiana, Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan State, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Um, Going back in state, defensive end Jackson Sandals Ford. I think somebody who, once he's ranked, could be a four-star prospect. Penn State offered him this summer during the last bash, has emerged as one of the top teams for him so far this season. I believe this will be his third visit since, including the last bash, since July. I think he's pretty high on Penn State's defense end board. Good length, very good athlete. I think he has a high ceiling. Going to be somebody to watch at defensive end for Penn State in this cycle. Also holds offers from Boston College, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Pittsburgh, Rutgers, Virginia Tech, Wisconsin, and West Virginia. Going down to a Florida prospect and somebody who's actually related to a Penn State coach. That's four-star athlete Jaron Hewley out of Cardinal Newman High School in West Palm Beach. Third game day visit, made trips in 2022 and 2023. Intriguing prospect, and actually somebody who plays quarterback for Cardinal Newman. But next level, he's probably a wide receiver or safety. And we talked about that relationship. He's related to Penn State running backs coach Jaywan Sider. Still trying to determine where Hewley is on the Penn State board in the grand scheme of things, but definitely somebody to watch if Penn State chooses to make a push for this for Hewley, who is a strong overall athlete. One would have to think they're in a good position thanks to their relationship. And then finally, tight end Evan Jacobson. Again, tight ends, a lot of tight ends on campus this weekend. Only 3-star. I think he could become a 4-star. Impressive offer sheet, including Iowa State, Kansas, Miami, Missouri, Ohio State, Texas A&M. First visit to Penn State since receiving an offer from the Nittany Lions this summer. And he's the brother of New Orleans Saints tight end Michael Jacobson, who actually played basketball in Nebraska and Iowa State, but is now in the NFL with the Saints. Notably, all those guys are 2026 prospects, and there are a couple of guys I could have also mentioned. I mean, sticking with the tight end theme, guys we have on our list here: Max Sutter, Lincoln Keys, Lincoln Watkins, all also on that board for Penn State in 2026 class at defensive end. Savion Hitter, one of the top running backs in the country, is going to be on campus. Wide receiver Ben Whitver, who Penn State has continues to host, will be on campus. Gregory Patrick, top Midwest offensive lineman, will be on campus. The list goes on and on. A really impressive quarterback Albert Hill, high 4-star out of Ohio, will be on campus. That being said, one I do want to mention in the 2025 class is official visitor Chaz Coleman out of Hardin High School in Ohio. Will be taking an official visit to Penn State this weekend. Also has offers from Florida State, Kentucky, Michigan State, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, among others. 3-star prospect, jumbo athlete, probably the best way to put it. Plays quarterback and defensive end. Penn State, I think, obviously looking at him as a defensive end, potentially at the next level. 6'5", 205. Really intriguing prospect for Penn State to get on campus this weekend for an official visit, and will be something here to watch closely coming out of this weekend in terms of for the 2025 recruiting class. Other than that, nothing with the 2025 recruiting class this weekend really worth of note. No flip targets or anything on campus as of right now, though that could absolutely change here in the next 24 hours. But until then, we will provide any updates of that with you guys on the boards at Happy Valley Insider, PennState.Rivals.com, on the Lions Den. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Penn State Rivals, as well as myself at Rivals Dylan CC on Twitter for any updates there. But until next time, everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of Penn State 365 podcast. I hope I didn't bore you guys on too much. We'll be back at it after this weekend's game to recap Penn State's matchup against Washington, and of course have any recruiting updates for you as well. I do apologize for the slow week here on the podcast. We all had a couple different things pop up family wise. Wasn't able to get to the pod, but hopefully better next week. But until then, enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next week.